So let us start today's daf yomi, which is a daf yomi for Shabbos. Let's start on the bottom of Nuntes Amabez. The daf yomi is Samoch. Let's start on the bottom of Nuntes Amabez. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 lines from the bottom. Amar Abaye Natina. We have a principle. Ein Sham Levi Koreh Kohen. Abaye says that if there's no Levi there, then the Kohen gets the Aliyah. So the Kohen gets the first and the second. Eini v'amar Rabbi Yochanan, is that really true? Rabbi Yochanan taught Kohen achar Kohen will yikra mishum pegamo shel rishon. That one Kohen should not be called after the first Kohen, because then they're going to say, okay, maybe the first Kohen wasn't a Kohen, that's why we have to call another Kohen. And Levi achar Levi will yikra mishum pegamo shneim. And one Levi should not read it after another Levi, because then you'll say, okay, the third one was in a Levi, or you'll say the second was in a Levi. So the Gemara says, so when do we say that a Kohen should read after another Kohen? Ki kamrinon ba'osa Kohen. Only if it's the same Kohen. So the Gemara says, well, ma'ishna Levi achar Levi. Why? It's the reason when it comes to one Levi after another Levi, we say the ika pagam shneim, that perhaps both of them have a blemish on them. Because we say perhaps one of them was not a Levi. Well, Kohen achar Kohen. Well, if it's one Kohen after the other Kohen, Nami Amri Chaminai Kohen. Why aren't we concerned there that maybe one of them is not a Kohen? So the Gemara says, Kigon to Muchsakon Bavua Tahai Sheni de Kohenu. Where we're talking about a scenario where we know that the second person called up is also a Kohen. So therefore, it's only a pagam. It's only raises questions about the first Kohen. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, well, then why don't we say it's also a concern that maybe the first one, why aren't we concerned? Why don't we say we're talking about the same scenario by Levi, that the second one's father was a Levi, so we should only have a pagam on the first Levi? The Gemara says, yeah, Amri. If that's the case, people might still say Mamzer or Nesina na Savu Pasli Lazari. So the Gemara says, no, we're concerned that even though the second Levi's father is a Levi, maybe people will say that his father married a Mamzer or a Mamzeris or a Nesina, and therefore disqualified his child from being a Levi. So the Gemara says, well, Hachinami, why don't we have the same circumstance by a Kohen? Amri Grusha Chalitza Nasif. Why don't we say maybe the second Kohen, his father married a divorcee and thereby messed up his son from being a Kohen? So the Gemara says, well, because in the end, Gemara says, well, no, the reason why we wouldn't have to say that is Levi Mikahave. Would his son, if the Kohen had married a Grusha Chalutza, then why would his son be getting called for the second Aliyah? He would be getting the third Aliyah. So for the fact he's getting the second Aliyah, we know that he must be a Kohen, because he for sure wouldn't be a Levi at that point. Gemara says, and who are we worried about? Well, man, if you want to say it's the people who are sitting there the whole time in Torah reading, well, and then they see that there's 7 Aliyos. They are not concerned. We're worried about the people who leave early, and they didn't realize that what was up. They didn't realize it was 7 people called, and there was no problems with any of their lineage. So the people from the Galilee sent a message to Rabbi Chalbo, and after the Kohen and the Levi were on the top of Samach Hamad Aleph, Mikorin. After the Kohen and the Levi, who reached in the Torah? So he didn't know. Also, V'shayla Rabbi Yitzchak Nafa. He asked Rabbi Yitzchak Nafa, and he said, Acharei Korin Talmid Chacham Amamunim Al Parnasim Al Tzibur. After them reads the Torah scholars who are appointed in charge of the community. And after that, Talmid Chacham Aru'uyim Limnosim Parnasim Al Tzibur. And after them, the Torah scholars who are worthy to be appointed as the officers over the community. And after them, B'nei Talmidei Chachamim, the sons of the Torah scholars, Shavoseim and Munim Parnasim Al Tzibur, whose fathers were appointed the Parnas on the community. And after the heads of the congregations and every single person. So the Bnei Galilee people sent the message to Rabbi Chalbo can you read from the Chumashim in the synagogue, B'tzibur, in public? When we say Chumashim, it's not referring to what we call the Chumash, which is a Bible. This is referring to they would write the scrolls as separate scrolls. He couldn't afford a whole Torah scroll, so they would just write, let's say, the book of Bereshis and tie it up, and they would write it on parchment. So can you read that? He didn't know the answer. He came and he asked Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. He didn't know the answer. Also, Shayal Bei Midrasha. He asked in the base medrash, Pashtua Mehada Amar Bishmul Bar Nachmani Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Sefer. So they wanted to answer from the fact that it says Sefer Torah Shachas Yiriya Achas Ein Karambo. The Torah scroll is missing one piece of parchment. You don't read from it. So we see from here you can't read from a Torah scroll that's missing something. Gemara says no, it's not the same case. Loli Hasam Mechaser B'Milsa. There, it has a whole book, but it's missing one page, so it's defective. But here, whatever it has, it's not missing anything. It was just one portion of the book. They say you can't read in the synagogue with a chumash because it's not honor for the community. The Rashba explains because you can't have. It's a defect in the community that they don't have a Torah scroll. Rabbi Rav Yosef Damar Travayo, High Sefer Haftarta, this book of the Haftarahs, they used to write just the Haftarahs in one book. Also, Shabbos. You're not allowed to read from it on Shabbos. My timer. The reason why you're not allowed to read from it on Shabbos is because since it's not a whole book of Navi, you shouldn't have written it down. And so therefore, since you can't write it down, so therefore it's muksa. Because you can't even move it. Since you can't read from it, you're not allowed to move it. And it's not the case. You're allowed to read from it and you're allowed to move it. Why? Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish used to look at these homilies which came from the Gemara and the Halacha. These are called Sifrei Agadata. They were reading them on Shabbos. But why? Why are they allowed to do it? You're not allowed to write down anything from the Talmud because it says these are the things you write down for Hashem, and you're not allowed to write down the oral law. So why were they able to write it? But even though Avshar, because since there was no possibility, because people were forgetting it, they said when the Torah is going to be forgotten, break the Torah. I mean, to say if you have no choice, you have to violate the Torah. Hachinami here also, keeping the low Afshar, since there's no possibility to remember that Torah unless you write it down, you have to break the Torah. And by doing that, since they can't write the whole prophets, they can write it down. Are you allowed to write a scroll for a child to study from? Meaning to say, can you write just a portion of the Torah for a child to study from? The Gemara says, this is a question according to the one who says, Torah Megillah, and it's not. Torah Chasum. It's a question according to the one who says that when the Torah was given to Moshe, that each passage was said to Moshe, and then he would write it. And then at the end of 40 years, when all the passages were finished, he tied them together, he connected them. That each passage was given by itself. Or it's a question according to the one who says that the Torah was given as one whole thing, meaning to say that no part of the Torah was written down until the end of 40 years, after all the Torah was said. And he kept saying it orally. Everything was said orally until he wrote it down at the end. So the Gemara says, it's a question according to the one who says the Torah was given in one scroll at a time. Keeping the Megillah Nisna, Kosin, since it was given one scroll at a time, so therefore you could write it down. Or Kivan the Idbak, or maybe once it was tied together, it's tied together. Or it's a question according to the one who says the whole Torah was written down all at once. Keeping the chasuman enkos, and we say since the Torah is written all at once, you can't write it each paragraph by itself. Or maybe because we have no possibility here that keeping the low afshar, since there's no other way to teach the kids the Torah, since there's no possibility, not everybody has the ability for a child to give him a whole Torah, therefore we write it down. Amalei ein kosvin. So he says we don't write a Torah, just a paragraph of a Torah, a portion of the Torah for the children. Ma'atam ufisha ein kosvin, meaning to say that the reason we don't do this is because you're not allowed to write individual parashos. Because once the Torah was combined, then we can't write each passage from the Torah by itself. But what about the fact that Hoina the Malka in Tractate Yuma, Tabo shows up, she took a golden board, she parsha Sota Ksuba, and she wrote the passage of Sota on it. And that's what they copied the Sota for when they would make a passage in the Torah. So Amar Shlakish Mishum Rabbi Yanai Ba'alf Bet. No, she wouldn't write the whole Torah, she just did a shorthand there. She didn't write the whole paragraph. Another question. When the Kohen who writes the Parsha Sota, he looks at what's written in the tablet and he copies from it. So he sees he's not copying from the Torah, he's copying from a tablet. No, he copies the shorthand. He follows it like it was written in the Torah. That they would give simanim, they would give signs, and then he would write it. So the Gemara says, so we have a brayso that says when he writes, he would see what was written in the tablet, and he would write exactly what was written in the tablet. And what was written in the tablet? This is from the Gemara in Sota. So it proves that the whole text was written, and not the simanim, not just the like the shorthand. The Gemara says, no, there what we're talking about, the Bryce is talking about those cases where it was the first words were written, but not the whole verse. So still just a portion of it. Ketanai. And so the Gemara says this is a machokas tanayim, whether or not you could write one passage from the Torah, because we learned ein kosvin with Megillah Latinok, but Slamiba, you're not allowed to write a passage from the Torah for a child to learn from. But if he intends to write the whole Torah, it will be permitted. Rabbi Yehuda says, with Bereshis, he says there are certain passages that you're allowed to write even though you don't intend to complete them. The Bereshis Hador Amabol, the Torah's Kohanim Ad Vayiba Yom Hashmini, that you could write from the beginning of Bereshis until the generation of the flood, and from in Vayikra until Parsha Shmini. So that's a dispute whether or not you're allowed to write anything. According to the first part, you can do it if your intent is to complete it. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, even if your intent is not to complete it, you can write certain passages. Now, he says the passage of the Torah was given one scroll at a time. It says, it says in Tehillim, Sefer Kasuvawai. So that's what David HaMelech says, Azamarti. Then I said, behold, I came with a scroll written upon me. So the word Megillah proves that the Torah was not all written at once, but first they wrote the Megillah Bereshis, and then Noach, and then Avram, and that's what David HaMelech was saying, that he's written in the Megillah of Avram. That proves that he goes back to the time of Abraham. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, Torah chasuma nitna shenemar lakoach hasefer Torah zeh. So he says, hold on, we'll just read the Rashi. Kachamar David, that's what David said. Azamarti kisher uro olai Shaul v'doeg. When Shaul and Doeg were challenging me to disqualify me, so I said, Hinei vati. Now I've come in to be included. Kasuv alai. What does that mean? Torah I was mentioned back in the Torah. It says there are two daughters who are found there in the merit of David, and in the future they're going to come out from Ruth and Naamah, who is the mother of Rechavam. So David comes from Ammon and Moab, and that's what it says here. So you see, it's called a Megillah. Whereas Rish Lakish says Torah Chasuma because it says Lakoch Sefer Torah Hazeh, and implies it's one scroll. So what is the Tana Kama? What does Rabbi Yochanan, the name of Rabbi Bana, say? So he says, that's after it's connected. What does Rish Lakish do with Rabbi Yochanan's source? Kula Ikri Megillah. It means that the whole Torah is called the Megillah because it says, Vayomer Elai Ma Ta Roeh, Vaomer Ani Roeh Megillah Afah. So he says in Zechariah, he says, "What?" He said to me, "What do you see?" And he said, "I see a scroll hovering." Inami, or alternatively, could the Rabbi Levi, or else Rish Lakish could say like Rabbi Levi, the Amar Rabbi Levi, Shmonik Parshos Nemru Biyom Shukam Bo Mishkan. That even though the whole Torah was written all at once, nevertheless it's called the Megillah because there were 8 passages that were written on the day that the Mishkan was established, and so therefore each one had to be written on its own scroll, and so therefore, even though the rest of the Torah was written at once, these ones were written separately. Which are the passages that were written separately? Parashas Kohanim, that's Parashas Emor, that was written specifically at the beginning. Parashas Leviim, that's the passage of how the Leviim became purified. Parashas Shiluach Tameim, when they're sent out of the camp, the Tameim people are sent out. Parashas Acharei Mos, Parashas Shesuya Yayin, Parashas Neros, this is Ba'aloscha, and Parashas Paraduma. So the Gemara now tells us, Amar Rebbe Elazar, Torah rov b'chtav u'miut b'peh. The Torah, most of it is written down, but a little bit is orally. As it says, Echtov lo rubi Torah si kemo zar nefshavo. Rabbi Yochanan says, rov b'peh, most of the Torah is not based upon the written text. U'miut b'chtav, a little bit is from the written text. As it says, ki al pi advar ma'ila. Alternatively, Ruby Torah. So what does Rabbi Yochanan do with Rabbi Elazar's verse? So he says it's a question. Question is va'o kamo, meaning to say asking a question mark. And he says va'o kamo zar nafshavu, that Yisrael are like zarim with Torah, that which is written that they didn't keep, that they don't keep the mitzvahs. So the Gemara says, "Ve'idach, what does Rabbi Elazar do with Rabbi Yochanan's pasuk? Nami oksiv ki al pi advar ma'ila u'mishum dekifei u'migmarinu." This verse teaches us that Torah Sheba'al Peh is considered to be more important than Torah Sheba'al Peh because it's harder to study, and so therefore it's considered to be even more important for the bris. Darash Rabbi Yehuda bar Nachmani Meturgaman Darash Lakish. Rabbi Yehuda bar Nachmani, who was the Meturgaman, the interlocutor, the spokesman for Rish Lakish, Ksiv Ksovuchas Advar Ma'ela, meaning implies the Torah Ksiv Ki Al Pi Advar Ma'ela, and then it means implies orally. Ha Keitzad Dvarim Bichtav Yat Dvarim Shebachtav Yat Torah Shayla Amran Al Peh. Words that are written down, you can't say them by heart. The words that are said by heart, you're not going to write them down. So therefore, you can't write down the oral law, which is, and the only reason why we know this statement is because the oral law says it. The Rabbi Shmuel Tana, it says in the pasuk, "So v'chased varma ewa." What does that mean? Ewa takosev, ya takosev alchos. You write the Torah, but you don't write the oral law. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, l'karas hakadosh baruch hu grisim Yisrael al b'shvil dvarim shalapeh. The reason why Hashem made a covenant with the Jewish people was because of the oral law, because it says, as Israel. A very, very important passage, obviously, which we went through way too quickly. We'll spend more time on it on Shabbos. We are allowed to make an Erev. We keep the Erev in the house that, the challah, in the house that it was in the whole time, because it makes peace. Gemara says, "My timer." Because we want to give honor to that house. And the Gemara says, and if you take it away, Rabbi Yehuda, Basof Bei Rabba, Basof Bei Rav Yosef, Basof Bei Rabba, Basof Bei Abba, Basof Bei Rabba. And so the Gemara says, if you want to say that it's only because of honor, but what about the fact that there was a shofar that they used to blow on Erev Shabbos? At first, it was in Rabbi Yehuda's house, then it went to Rabba's, then to Rav Yosef, then to Abaye's, and then to Rabba. So we see that the shofar moved around. So the Gemara says, no, the reason why you don't change the place of the Erev is because people typically would see a place there in the house, and when they don't see it, they'll think, oh, there's no Erev this Shabbos, and that'll be a problem. Then the pit that is closest to the river, that's what gets filled up first. Itmar, B'nai Nahara, it says in the base measures, the people of the river, Rav Amar Tatoi Shasu Mayim Bereisha. Shmuel Amar Eli Shasu Mayim Bereisha. Rav says the bottom ones drink first. Shmuel says the top ones. But the Mezo Koyamo Pligi, when the river is flowing and nobody averts it, everybody agrees. Whoever wants to take it comes and draws it first. They only argue when the top people want to stop the flow. Shmuel Amar Eli Shasu Mai Bereisha, the Amri Anan Mikarvin and Tvei. The top people get to stop it first because they say we're closer to the top of the river. Rav Amar Tatoi Shasu Mai Bereisha, the Amri Nara Kapashte Lezel. The Rav says the bottom people fill it up first because they say let the river go in its path, come to our field, and they don't have the permission to stop it. So this seems to be like Shmuel, that the top one takes first. So Tergma Shmuel, but the Rav Shmuel says, I'm going to explain what Rav would say. That maybe our Mishnah is talking about where the river on its own would fill up the cistern, but not that you divert it to fill up the cistern. Well, then what's the chiddush? And says, you might have thought to say you have to cover up your pit, and you might have thought that you're required to cover up your pit and then draw the water in. And you're not required to do that. Since we didn't establish, not like Rav, that the top one get that, like not like Rav that the bottom one gets, and not like Shmuel that the top one gets it, we say called the on gvar. Whoever gets it first, whoever stronger wins. Can you allow me to set a time where I can study with you at the proper time? So he says, Lusvan Marbalela, come tonight to study with him. Amarle Isli Mayo Ashkuye. He says, I have to irrigate my field at night. He says, don't worry, I'll do it for you tomorrow. And then you come over with me at night. Amarle He says, okay. So Rav Shimi went to the people on top. Amarle, he said to them, he says, we get to drink the water first. He went to the bottom people and says, we get to drink the water first. In the meantime, he took his water. He was in the middle. He took his water. He told the top ones, the bottom people get it first. He told the bottom people, the top people get it first. And then he went and took it. Abaye says, he said, you can't do that. You follow two different approaches with each different people. You took contradictory positions. We certainly don't get it first. Either the top one or the bottom one gets it, but not the middle one. That year, Abaye didn't drink from the fruits of his field, meaning to say, he says, I don't want his poison fruits. I'm not touching it. So the people of the town of Charmech, they went and they dug above their fields to avert the river, so to avert the stream. And then they brought it back by digging. Basically, they dug out a path. So the people on the top said, listen, they're messing up a river. He says, you should also dig out a little bit deeper, and therefore the water won't pass over your fields. He says, no, but the wells will dry up. He says, okay, get out of here and return to its initial stream. So anyway, we'll go into more of this depths of this on Shabbos, but you see they're fighting over water then, they fight over water now. And anyway, everybody should have an amazing Shabbos, a lot of beautiful Gemaras on this page. We need to go much slower on the Shabbos Kodesh. Shkoyach.
Shabbos, thank you.
Shabbos, thank you.